I'm here today with our 4 transitional deacons who were due to be ordained on Saturday the 18th of July. This has now been postponed to September, but on their ordination date we'd still like to ask them some questions which have been submitted by parishioners. So I'm going to ask our deacons to introduce themselves and to answer initially when you realised that you were called to the priesthood. So firstly, I would like to ask Alex.
So my name's Alex Taylor. I'm born in Burton-on-Trent. I'm a parishioner from St Mary and St Modwin. In answer to the first question, when did I first feel called? I think maybe when I was working with people. When I'll be one of the later questions, I think. But when I'm, experiencing people in everyday life.
If not the priesthood, what job or career might satisfy you?
You'd probably find I'd probably still be working where I used to work. So that was on a factory floor, doing 12-hour shifts, and it was hard work, but it was rewarding in a sense, because you felt like you'd done something, and it's providing a service for people, and you're working with people as well, and that's part of the ministry that we're going into. So yeah.
Anyone who wants to follow the vocation of priesthood, what would you advise they do? How could they progress that or explore their options?
Obviously pray about it. That's an important thing, but to also talk to priests, talk to people. You can go into the nitty-gritties. Just talk to people.
Clive, the same question to you, please.
I was a young man in the military, and I was converted to Christ first. I wasn't a Catholic or an Anglican or anything really, it sort of came out of the blue. So I went to the Anglican ministry to begin with, and it was while I was training for the Anglican ministry that I felt called to the priesthood. And to start with, I thought I could do this in the Church of England. There was something called the Anglo-Catholic movement, the Oxford movement, very much founded by Newman. But I realised I couldn't. A lot of us realised we couldn't. So in the early 90s, we converted. And because I had a small family and a wife who is not a wage earner as such, she had a small part-time job, I couldn't go forward for training. I did the preparation, but I didn't feel it was fair on my family. So I carried on in education, because I'd become a chaplain by then. And then eventually I finished in education, and it sort of started to come back to me, and I resisted mightily and heartily, but I couldn't in the end. So when did I think about becoming a priest? Probably about 1987, 88. So it's been a long time.
If not the priesthood, then what job or career might have satisfied you?
But I also enjoyed education. I became a headmaster, and I did that for 25 years. So I did that. I had a secular career. And when I retired in 2015, I thought that was the end of it. But apparently it wasn't.
And what would you advise to anyone who wishes to follow the same vocation?
Ignore it. Best thing is ignore it. And if it goes away, it's not genuine vocation. But if it keeps on nagging at you, then you've got to go and talk to somebody. I went to see my bishop recently and burst into tears. And I went to see the Archbishop and burst into tears as well, which is not saying I've done a lot in my life. And I felt that was genuine, something was happening then. So ignore it to start with if you can, but if it becomes too painful, you have to follow it. And seek wise advice as well. Wise advice.
Benedict, same question for you then. When did you realise that you were called to the priesthood?
I felt called to the priesthood from about the age of 14, really. And it kind of was, there was an initial idea from that time, but I didn't know really anything about it, other than that a priest said mass. I didn't, or heard confessions occasionally. I didn't know much more. So over the years after that, I learned more about the priesthood. I read up on it a bit. I spoke to some priests about it, which was really helpful. So yeah, really since I was a teenager, and I went to seminary to begin my training for the priesthood fairly soon after leaving sixth form. So it kind of just grew from there.
If not the priesthood, what career or job do you think would have satisfied you?
I'm not sure I really know. Before I went to seminary to do my training, I worked for 3 years whilst I was in college and everything in retail, and I really enjoyed that, working with people. I worked with some great people and had a good time. I suspect I wouldn't have stayed in that for too long afterwards, but I'm not sure quite what I would have done. I had different ideas and things, but I'd say I think because I was thinking about the priesthood from a young age, all the other ideas for careers and different careers I looked into at times, I had a real sense that they wouldn't give me much satisfaction, and that actually I'd find that satisfaction in following that calling to the priesthood. So I think that was my own journey.
And as I've asked the others, what would your advice be to anyone else who's similarly feeling that calling?
I think the advice from Clive is good about seek wise counsel. Go to your parish priest, go to a priest you know, and talk to them about it. Tell them that you're thinking about becoming a priest, and I'm sure they'll be able to help. So seek counsel, and also pray. Keep up the prayer life. Before anyone's called to be a priest, they're called to be a holy man. So really focus on that above anything else, and keep up the relationship with Christ, and he'll continue to show you the way that he wants you to go.
Sean, and when did you realise that you were called to the priesthood?
Well, I come from a Catholic family, but it's not a particularly religious one, in the sense that we never had like prayers and stuff at home. However, when I was probably 10 or just under, I started to try and build up a prayer life for myself, and it was really as that prayer life started to grow and my relationship started to grow in those years, that I started to become aware that the Lord might be calling me to be a priest. It was something kind of quite vague, never kind of one really strong moment, but something that stayed with me for a long time and a number of years. And then eventually, it was only when I was 23 that I actually applied to join seminary and was accepted and started, but it was something that stayed with me for quite a long time. And
if not the priesthood, would another career or job have been satisfying?
Do you know, I think for me, the idea of the priesthood's quite unique in the sense that it really is a vocation, and in that sense it's hard to imagine myself outside of it, really. I mean, I'm sure I could have in another world lived a happy life elsewhere, but I find it almost impossible to imagine myself in any other context or doing anything else. And to be honest, the idea of being a priest kind of fills me with a lot of excitement and stuff, so I'm really looking forward to that specifically.
And what would you advise anyone who's got the same calling?
I think what I would say is not to be afraid. It's very easy when I speak to people for people to say things like, I don't want to make an application, because it seems like such a final thing to do, or even to ask the question is such a final thing to do. But to just start asking the question is to ask what's God's will for me, and what God wants for us is what's truly going to make us happy. And even when it comes to taking steps, like concrete steps, getting in touch with the vocations director, praying about it and asking God for it, even the step of joining seminary, all of those steps actually, they in a sense test your vocation. And it can be easy to be afraid of testing your vocation, but it's the best way. I found I wasn't certain I wanted to be a priest when I started seminary, but by going to seminary, it became very kind of clear within a couple of years that that's what the Lord wanted me to do. And more importantly, well, not more importantly, but equally importantly, that also that's what I wanted to do as well. And I think it's that kind of testing by experience which I'd say to people, just don't be afraid. Go with it, and the Lord will show you if it's the wrong thing, as long as you're acting with integrity and being self-aware all the time and keeping up your prayer. The Lord will show you, so don't be afraid to take those steps.